This is Trish Lynch for Politipeeps, and we have Larry Sharpe with us today. I've worked with Larry for about 2 years now, and it's been a wonderful working relationship with him. We have some questions for him in order to sort of give insight into Larry's point of view on life and how to achieve happiness. So, Larry, where does anger come from? And should anger be suppressed and ignored, or can it be used for constructive purposes?
Well, it's a great question. The root of anger is a perceived lack of respect or a perceived lack of control. If you feel like you're disrespected or you feel like you're out of control, you will often feel angry. If you don't feel either of those two things, you don't feel angry. You feel some other emotion: disappointment, disgust, frustration, but not anger. Anger comes from those two things: feeling like you're out of control or feeling like you are disrespected. When you realize that, what winds up happening in your brain is your two top brains. In theory, you've got three brains, right? You've got, and this is very generic, you've got your most primitive brain. On top of that, you've got your mammalian brain. On top of that, you got your primate brain. When you become angry and you feel that, those two top brains shut right off. And all of a sudden now you're just that fight or flight mode, right? So either you shut down and run, or you start yelling and screaming and attacking and doing that kind of cool stuff, right? One of those two things. Usually both are the wrong answer. The problem is anger will very often immediately spur some type of reaction, and it should be trying to spur thought, and it's hard when your brain is hijacked. So if you accept that as true, the second that you feel angry, this is going to sound very kind of new agey, but it's true. Just take a breath. Take that thought to say, why am I angry? What's going on here? Take a breath. Just do that. Give yourself a second. If you react right away, you will almost always regret it. So you don't want to react. In fact, anger is so strong that literally Miyamoto Musashi, who wrote the Book of Five Rings, actually brought up the idea that anger is one of the greatest barriers to success. Controlling your emotions is a barrier to actually fighting well as being a sword fighter. And that's what he was, one of the greatest sword fighters in Japan. And he talked about his emotion. Robert Greene in the 48 Laws of Power speaks about how anger is the greatest barrier to power, because it really can make you do things that you regret and create damage that is very hard to repair. So take that breath. I'm not joking. I mean a physical breath. Then I want you to ask yourself what you're actually feeling. Literally say to yourself, I feel this, I feel that. To connect in your own brain, language and emotion. If you just yell or scream or announce, you are not calming yourself down. You're not connecting that second mammalian brain that has language in it. You're not connecting it. I want you to say something like, I feel frustrated. I'm tired of this. I wish this wouldn't happen anymore. I don't want this to happen. Whatever that thing is, that's why venting works. Venting works because venting turns on your second brain, takes that first brain and kind of loses control. Then I want you to think about what happens next. What's the next piece? What am I going to do to fix this? What's the next answer? How do I plan? That turns on your third brain. That's your primate brain. That's your planning brain. All of a sudden, all your brains are on. Now you're thinking, and you can hopefully do it right. Focus your anger and focus on two things: gaining control and or gaining respect. Remember, yelling and screaming is actually false control. You're fooling yourself into believing you're in control. I'm yelling, everyone else be quiet. See, I'm in control. You're not really in control, but you're fooling your brain into being in control, and it calms you down sometimes if you can gain that control. But what if anyone else is angry? Then they're all yelling. No one's in control. Now we're all angry. Bad, bad, bad. So I don't want you to focus on the yelling and screaming aspect. It's false control. I want you to gain real control, but of yourself first, so you can think clearly to then begin to gain that self-control of yourself and then others, and then show others you are worthy of respect. By having self-control, you will also gain respect. This will calm you down. Now that's easier said than done. Is there any value to having anger? There is sometimes, because for some people who can't make this happen, or you're touching an issue that's been bothering you for literally decades, childhood things, personal things that have bugged you or hurt you throughout your life, that when that thing hits you, it's like a dagger to your heart. It's hard for you to respond from that. If your option is depression or anger, choose anger. If you only have those two choices. I hope you don't. But if you are in that spot, something's hit you so hard that you simply have trouble recovering, anger is an acceptable temporary stopping point. Let me say it again. temporary stopping point. Depression is often a hole that many of us can never get out of. Depression is a hole that's horrible. It's a terrible black hole. At least anger focuses it on someone else. But here's the issue with anger. Depression is often anger at yourself. Anger, if you use it the right way, is anger at something else. And it's going to sound crazy, but if you are in a bad spot, create an enemy. Create a third party. I'm mad at the system. I'm mad at the guys. I'm mad at these things. And you can watch how that will often focus people. Now, it can become unhealthy. I agree. It can be. But I'm saying use this if the only option is depression or this. If those are your only two options, take anger as a temporary way of focusing your anger to begin planning. As you start planning, then you start thinking, does this really make sense? Is this really the enemy? Now I have some control. How do I gain control and respect to drop your anger and then focus on your true goals? Because the problem about this here is, without question, if you get too angry and you start focusing on hurting someone else or getting someone else back, you may lose actual track of your real goals, which is your own personal happiness. Again, I'll go back to Miyamoto Musashi again. And he says, please allow your enemy to do whatever your enemy wants, as long as it doesn't affect your goal. Again, easier said than done, because many people who know you, particularly your friends, family, people close to you, they know how to push your buttons. So they purposely push your buttons. They know how. So they want your attention. They push your buttons and try to drive you crazy and make you angry. Now to ignore them and to move forward on your goals is super hard. But if you do it enough, they'll stop. Not because they hate you or love you, but because it isn't working. They'll begin to stop over time.
It's actually interesting because my own history started, I had a very rough childhood and I was very angry about it.
Sure.
And so, you know, my initial success in life was from essentially getting angry and saying, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Yes, the focusing on the enemy. Yes.
Yes. And then after that, I think, you know, anger does burn itself out after a while. You can't, if you're that angry, you can't stay that angry for the rest of your life. I mean, some people have a chip on their shoulder, right? But they, like you said, they're never going to be successful.
If you stay angry constantly, you're never going to be successful because you're never going to be happy because you're always trying to fight somebody. That's correct. That's why I say it's a good temporary piece. But kids, children are notoriously angry. Why? They're out of control. They don't have control of their lives. They're always being controlled by parents. They're being controlled by adults, controlled by a system they don't understand. The system isn't meant for them, disrespected. Very often, kids are very angry. I find myself doing very well with kids, generally speaking, because I just talk to them. I give a kid respect, even though they're not in control. I give them respect when I talk to them. I say, hey, how you doing? I talk, what are you doing right now? Oh, you doing that? How do we fix this? How do we fix that? I talk and tease kids all the time in that way, giving them almost a set of false control, false respect, and they tend to open up to me because kids are very often angry for exactly that reason. If you have a bad childhood, of course you are angry. You have no control over it.
Yes.
You have no control. Of course you are.
And I think
a long time.
And I think in that way, you know, that's how kids get mentors. In many ways, is that there's somebody who does that. There's somebody who pays them that respect. It lifts them up out of that anger into a more productive mode.
A mentor says that your happiness matters. A mentor says your goals have value. Therefore, by default, a mentor is granting you respect by granting you time, particularly if that person is older or is in a position of authority or power. Of course, kids want that. It's often the father or mother figure that people want.
Thank you, Larry. That was amazing. And this is Trish Lynch for Politipeeps and Larry Sharpe. Larry, how can we find you?
TheSharpeWay.com or go to the Sharpe Way Facebook page, Sharpe Way Twitter, Sharpe Way Instagram.
Okay, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and ring the bell.